Did you see Infinity War and Endgame when they came out? Sure you did. You're a nerd who likes Doctor Who, and around that time you couldn't hide from the Marvel machine. Well, you know what? So did Russell T Davies. Or at least he paid attention to how much money they made. And considering how often he was cribbing from Netflix shows this season, I guess RTD decided that it was time to do the same to Disney and try to rip off two of the biggest Marvel movies to ever hit the theaters. Can you believe how many times I've had to start my reviews this way? Don't worry, we still have a Star Wars reference to get to, but I'm getting ahead of myself. If you've already watched RTD's first run, then you know what his two-part finales are like. Giant stakes in the first episode and minimal returns on the second. It's finally time to look at The Legend of
Ruby Sunday!
So the Doctor finally decides that he's seen enough of these Mary-Do's every time he stops somewhere, and he's gonna go and talk to Unit about it. And decides he's going to fly into Unit headquarters with his fucking time and space machine that materializes wherever it wants, but I guess he wants to show off. Unit gets ready for his visit like their mother-in-law is going to stay a few weeks and make sure everyone is spit-shined and at attention. That is, until the Doctor opens the TARDIS doors, and everyone in this military organization starts gushing because their favorite lovable alien has shown up. Anyway, the Doctor starts spewing about all of the Mary-Do's, and Unit recognizes her immediately because a grandma tech genius that apparently just recently burst onto the scene is about to provide her technology to everyone, everywhere, for free. This type of behavior immediately makes Unit suspicious, duh, because it mimics just about every evil villain plan from the movies and other Doctor Who episodes. If you're wondering what tech old Susan Triad is trying to give the world for free, well, you can just go ahead and keep on wondering because apparently it doesn't matter. The same guy who couldn't figure out that slugs were eating people in alphabetical order points out that S Triad is an anagram for TARDIS. And everyone at Unit straight looks at the Doctor like he's a dumb f*** because even Kate's eye candy figured out that one. Ruby then acts like nobody has ever had the name Susan before and points out that this is the same name as the Doctor's granddaughter. Even though she's an old hag and white, she wonders if this is the same Susan the Doctor mentioned back in the Devil's Court. The Doctor wonders this too and then explains regeneration to Ruby in a way that sort of explains it, but also explains how the Master does it, and then changes the subject to kill two birds with one Unit stone and figure out who Ruby's mom is. When it's rightfully pointed out that as a time traveler, he could easily go back and find out for himself, he explains that it snows around Ruby, and since he has already been at the scene at the church on Ruby Road, he can't go back because he's time-locked himself out of it. Remember this because we'll come back to it. Anyway, Harriet Arbinger, nobody mentions her last name until later for obvious plot reasons, points out that there were cameras around back then, and Ruby just so happens to have this footage on VHS back at her place. So Morris Gibbons, the world's smartest kid and new chief science officer, way to stab Jamie in the back, bro, points out that they can take this shitty footage and clean it up like we're in some sort of CSI episode, and they should go get it. They head on over to Carla's house and get Mrs. Flood to come over and watch Cherry while she gets the tape, and Carla decides to use this opportunity as a job interview that she will instantly regret. They leave to bring the tape back to Unit, and Mrs. Flood immediately turns into a cunt by not getting Cherry her cup of tea and mentioning that the one who waits is finally returning. Meanwhile, Melanie has embedded herself with Susan Triad as part of the press team, and she decides to get a DNA sample from Susan 90 minutes before her big technology rollout. Way to wait until the last second there, Melanie. Meanwhile, Kate asks the doctor about his granddaughter, and the doctor gives one of the shittiest explanations as to why he's been a deadbeat for all these years, while also casually mentioning that he hasn't had kids yet.
I was a dad once. Dad to dad. You never let them down.
And he was kind of an asshole back when he was Hartnell by not going back, but he's going to try and be a different doctor now. Melanie shows back up, and they find out that Triad Merridew is human and a pretty nice old lady, but Kate isn't convinced. Team Ruby shows back up. The doctor calls bullshit that Unit doesn't have a time window like he told them not to have, makes fun of their technology, and somehow they are able to recreate the scene on the night of Ruby's birth because Unit can figure out the direction of how the snow was falling, and because of Ruby's memory, even though she was a newborn and wouldn't remember that at all. With this near-perfect projection mapping, the Doctor and Ruby nearly see Ruby's mom, but she glitches past them, and now they're not able to make out the face. In fact, nobody in the room can see her face due to her druid robes, and because the plot doesn't want you to. When the Doctor shows up from the church on Ruby Road, he runs off to do his thing. The present Doctor thinks the TARDIS nearly looks solid, saying some nonsense about a memory of a time machine remembered, and Carla notices that Ruby's mom is crying. The past Doctor comes back. Ruby's mom points at him, apparently not seeing him even though he's standing right there, and usually the perception filter doesn't completely make the Doctor invisible. Colonel Chidozi is told to look behind the TARDIS in the memory, pissing off Kate because, hey, don't they have cameras in this room where they can look rather than having the guy walk around the TARDIS? He doesn't see shit though. Ruby's mom walks off and nobody gets any information at all, rendering this little excursion into the time window a complete waste of time and energy. And everyone is all sad about not being able to get any damn thing from this memory that they came for, when a big old red smoke monster shows up where Chidozi once was, and nobody has any idea except for Carla, who has seen the episode Satan's Pit and claims it to be the devil. Chidozi answers from the cloud that he's in hell now, thank you very much, Doctor, for making him go around the TARDIS, and the whole memory explodes. Chidozi is now a sandcastle, and Kate is pretty mad at the Doctor for putting her soldier in harm's way when she full well knew this could be dangerous back when they started. I guess the Doctor decides to stop f***ing around with Ruby's mom and wants Mel to take him to Susan Triad so that he can figure out what's going on. They get there 10 minutes before the big speech, and the Doctor has a bit of a tantrum because he got someone killed, even though this sort of thing happens weekly, and Mel tells him to nut up and go meet Susan and figure out if she's his granddaughter. Spoilers, she isn't. The Doctor meets her about 1 minute before her big speech, and she goes on and on about crazy dreams that she sometimes has with this complete stranger. The Doctor brings up the prior episodes that we've seen her in, and Triad gets even more worked up about it before she goes on to her big speech. Mel jumps about 10 spots on my best companion list by asking a totally logical in-universe question.
Being an ambulance.
Thanks for that, Mel. Meanwhile, Harriet finds out that the smoke monster is now part of the VHS tape and goes full narcissist about finding out. And her big idea is to rewind it a bit, and they see the TARDIS is there again, only now after it had already left, and the TARDIS that's in Unit groans. The Doctor tells everyone to get away from the TARDIS, but is certain that Susan Triad is now part of the problem, so he needs to stay and confront her. Luckily, the rising tension in this episode is kicked straight in the nuts, while Triad Merridew takes a silly poke at Theresa May at the start of her big speech. Kate evacuates the bridge, Carla gets sent home, and we get that kick-ass shot of Unit scanning the TARDIS. Shut up, you know how f***ing awesome this scene is. I rewound it and rewatched it twice. We get some fantastic tension with the TARDIS groaning again while Susan makes her big speech. Unit figures out whatever is surrounding the TARDIS is there. Triad starts hearing a voice in her head, blathers a bit about all the other Merridews that she sees in her dreams. Harriet Arbinger starts an amazing speech. The doctor figures out it's a harbinger for a god, and oh shit! Sutekh is back! Surprise, bitches! And he's here to kill half the universe. Sorry, he's here to dust everyone because he's the god of death. Bye-bye, random guy. And the doctor is gobsmacked. Well, that was quite the cliffhanger. Let's jump into the things that I liked. I did like most of the time window scene. I know I keep saying it, but the Disney money makes everything look so much better. I know others have complained about the visual effects, but honestly, it didn't bother me. I liked the projection mapping look it created, even if I didn't really understand how it ultimately was able to function the way that it did. I was a bit annoyed since we have seen the TARDIS create time windows in the past, even if it was in a terrible mini-episode used to explain how the Doctor got his fez and turned Albert Einstein into an Ood, so I'm probably just getting a little bit nerdy there. It was a cool scene and it did carry tension, especially since the show was making such a big deal out of Ruby's mom. I really liked the rising tension near the end of this episode. I know upon rewatch this episode really kinda sucks when you already know about Ruby's mom. At the time though, I was pretty into it because I really did want to know who she was, since I thought it was going to be the trickster dropping off Ruby at the church because he knew the goblins were coming, but alas, that idea would have been way too awesome. And hey, maybe it still is, and we all misinterpreted it, and even though Ruby does have a regular mom, the trickster still knew the Doctor would come and save her. Okay, I'm going full Reddit post here. My point is that when the episode aired, I really enjoyed it, but mainly because of the rising tension once the Doctor gets to Triad. The music is nearly perfect in this scene, and the sense of dread when Unit goes on lockdown is really well done. Another thing that holds up on rewatch is the Sutekh reveal. I know the anagram is kinda hokey, and I'll have a lot to say about the overall execution of the use of Sutekh next time, but you can't argue that this wasn't at least pretty fun. Sure, even if you had figured it out or read spoilers or whatever, the scenes leading up to the Sutekh surprise were well done. Having him wrapped around the TARDIS was pretty damn awesome. Things I didn't like.
I love Davina. Is she nice?
Oh, she's absolutely lovely.
That's one good thing.
Davina McCall. Really? What did this woman do to get all this attention? I mean, I know it's a throwaway thing that's supposed to tie the Christmas episode to the finale, but my goodness, what a waste of time. Kate isn't the type of person to gush over how celebrities, they're just like us, in the middle of the Doctor trying to figure out if there's a global threat or not, and 90 minutes before it may happen. So you guys have a real concerning threat in front of your faces, with the S Triad and the TARDIS anagram and the Doctor seeing the Triad Meridu army everywhere he goes. But then as soon as there could be some obscure chance that Ruby's mom and Susan Triad could maybe be the same person because of some insane coincidences, everyone seems to abandon bothering with Triad to find out who Ruby's mom is. Now, I'm no military or deep state organization genius. I make YouTube videos about a kids' TV show that may or may not be on a long hiatus after this upcoming season, so my priorities are out of whack too. But I feel like you stay the course in monitoring this old broad rather than worrying about who dropped off the baby at the same time the Doctor fought off some hungry goblins. Like, okay, sure, we can figure out your identity issues later, Ruby. Maybe right now we concentrate on the old woman who is giving away her free technology to the world in the next 90 minutes. Hell, we just theorize that she may be the Doctor's granddaughter regenerated and that she's your mom, both of which turn out not to be true. Maybe if you had just thrown a hood onto her and brought her over to Unit, you could have run a blood test on her to figure out if she has Egyptian god DNA or whatever, and avoided this full dusting that you got. But no. Like we find out in the next episode, you and the damn god of death are too big a fans of reality TV and really gotta know who gave birth to the latest blonde girl that the doctor has decided to travel with. God damn, leave the paternity test to Jerry Springer or whatever and fix the global threat first. If you have time after that, worry about the single mom. It doesn't bode well for your investigative organization when the only person that seems to really be doing anything about Triad is Melanie. So the doctor states that he was a different doctor back when he was Hartnell. I don't mean to be a dick here, but you've been an asshole plenty of times since, to varying degrees. Honestly, the show seems to shit on that old man all the time. And even though he once tried to kill a caveman, the doctor has killed many people since then, and Hartnell wasn't nearly as big as an enigma as you claim, Doctor. I get a little tired of the retrofitting of the Hartnell doctor to be some kind of supreme prick and sexist asshole. He was neither. He may have locked Susan out of the TARDIS, but that was because he wanted her to have a normal life and was putting her in constant danger. He wanted her to experience love and loss and forge her own path. It wasn't cruel, but more like a parental figure letting her spread her wings. He was always kind and clever. He just didn't suffer many fools and had a way about him that didn't like too much fuckery. And I can appreciate that. It sort of feels like we have retconned Hartnell as a way to warn new fans that his era could be kind of foreign to what they're used to and they can just skip it. And that sucks because Hartnell's doctor is pretty fucking awesome when you get past the old TV thing. So how is Rose working for UNIT? Because she had Time Lord energy at one point and she shook it off? Sure, it's implied that she accompanies 14 on occasional adventures, but I am trying to figure out her qualifications as a teenager working for UNIT. Does she put on her resume that she's the offspring of the Dr. Donna? Is this in her HR file? And if so, why is UNIT just using her as a coffee girl or whatever because she complains that she doesn't ever get to do anything anyway? And where the hell is Donna? She's the one that negotiated a good deal working for UNIT. Is she off today? And she's cool with Rose just working with UNIT when she full well knows the kind of shit they get up to? As far as we know, she no longer possesses any Time Lord essence because she shook it off. So wouldn't this be kind of a dangerous job? I would figure that Donna doesn't want Rose ever put in danger, so why let her have a job there? Maybe it doesn't happen very often, but we see in this very episode that people that work here can die, and it wasn't very long ago that the whole damn building where UNIT works blew up, so I don't think this Nepo hire was a very smart move because A, her age, and B, her known experience of alien incursions being limited or shaken off. Plus, she offers no value in this episode or the next one, other than to have viewers say, "Oh, I know who that is," to justify her existence here. I like the actress, but I just felt like RTD brought her into the episode to shoe in as many characters as the audience already knows as he could. I'm not going to complain that we have never seen Harriet Arbinger before this episode, same as Morris. I get that if you had, we nerdlingers would have figured out Harbinger in about the time it takes for the name to come out of her mouth, so it's best to keep it under wraps until now. But you're going to fucking tell me that the doctor was smart enough to deduce what everyone else had when it came to the S Triad anagram, but not immediately figure out H. Arbinger? Did he even look at her name tag? And this is gonna happen in the same fucking episode? This is now the first Doctor that seems to get dumber as time goes by. Because he goes from figuring out the vocabulary of the Goblin's rope system, developing sonic gloves, and immediately knowing he needs to slow down his heart rate or face explosion, to not being able to identify an alphabetical kill system and not seeing the most obvious clue on the planet. God almighty, it's such a love fest in this military group. People hugging, laughing, playing grab ass. No fucking wonder you idiots never stop a damn thing when it comes to alien incursions. A mom, a robot dog, and a bunch of horny teenagers got more accomplished in stopping full-scale alien and supernatural attacks than you pantywaists have lately. Get it together, Kate. The Brigadier would be so disappointed. He had 1970s technology and he had to fight off the Master every week with a smartass bohemian, a dandy, and a hobo asshole that played the recorder to a guy in a kilt. And he didn't let UNIT devolve into such a disorganized mess that he went around hiring Dodo because she was in proximity to the Doctor. Things I didn't understand.
What?
The Vlinks got an upgrade, everyone. And we give a fuck why? Nobody has actually explained what the fuck this thing is, and I spend most of my energy trying to pay attention to the scientific gobbledygook everyone is spewing to go out on the web and read theories or backstories. So I'm sure someone knows what the hell this thing is supposed to be and how it works for UNIT, but they haven't mentioned it on TV to my knowledge, and that's where I get my sweet, sweet understanding of the whole story. I ain't got time to read, people.
Hot metal doctor.
I'm sorry, what? Did the half-robot, half-alien, half just flirt with the Doctor? Well, I'm not sure you have the right parts for this unless you have some really weird kinks.
And I'm Morris Gibbons, Unit Scientific Advisor, 13 years old, accelerated genius. Thanks for passing, asteroid.
I'm sure you are the smartest person of all, Morris. I'm not disputing that, especially considering the Doctor lately, but a passing asteroid? RTD, could the kid just be born smart? We've had geniuses before, but a passing asteroid bearing gifts of smart? Look, you could have told me that the kid was a genius from Zarblog 5 and I probably would have just gone with it, what with my head still reeling from the Vlinks over here, but I'm having trouble understanding the superhero origin story of the new Chief Science Officer. So an asteroid passes by, and you are the only one that gets blessed by the cosmic tale of genius? Asteroids pass by the Earth typically at high altitude, so millions upon millions of people would have been able to see it, but it chose Morris to impart knowledge to? Are you sure you just didn't run into a genie? Or was this asteroid one that landed by your house, as they do, looked like a Hershey Kiss and you touched it? Because, son, I don't know how to tell you this, but it is more than likely that you just laid hands on merely the embryonic sac of Tim Shaw, and you were just born smart. Because I don't think that thing gave brains away more than it took them away. Exhibit Ryan.
The Blinks, scan the target.
Wait, do you have to call it the Vlinks every time? In the TARDIS scan scene, everyone is freaking the f*** out because Sutekh's fart cloud may be around it, and Morris Gibbons turns around and shouts, "The Vlinks, scan the TARDIS." My understanding is the Vlinks is part alien, part robot, so it probably has feelings, the Morris Gibbons. So unless this thing is like the Doctor, who, by the way, you called Doc earlier, don't think I missed it, even though the Doctor seemed to.
Now, there are two things you can do. One, sit there until you get your breath back, and two, don't call me Doc. Now, do I make myself clear?
Maybe you can just dispense with the article and just call him Vlinks. So, Doctor, you say you can't go back to the moment of Ruby's birth because you've been there once before and you get some weird energy from it, what with the changing of the memory happening all the time and whatnot, and the snow. And sure, I get that it has been established that there are fixed points in time that cannot be altered. The show has explored this aspect on many occasions. But you know what isn't time-locked? 5 minutes after you left. You see, Ruby's mom continues to walk down the street, presumably crying because she left her infant daughter out in the snow on a door of a church, not knowing if they would even come to the door and pick her up and she might freeze to death. So I bet if you just set the TARDIS controls for, say, 5 minutes after you ran off to fight the goblins, and down the road a little bit, you could bum rush Ruby's mom, tackle her, and pull off the hood to reveal that she would have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for that damn Time Lord. But Salty, you ask, how would the Doctor even know where she was 5 minutes after? He doesn't know what direction she's going after he leaves. Well, it seems to me that if Unit can recreate the entire scene of Ruby's birth based upon the trajectory of how the snow is falling and boosted by Ruby's apparent memory of the moment an infant couldn't possibly remember due to the development of her brain at this point, the smartest alien in all the universe could likely figure out what direction that she's headed in. And if not, 5 minutes after the fact isn't exactly time-locked, so he could just keep rematerializing on every street at the same time until he found her. I don't understand the lack of using the tools available to find out who this woman is, considering how seemingly important it is to everyone, including Sutekh, Unit, and the Doctor, in the face of the Triad Mary-Do big reveal an hour from now anyway. Well, if you've made it this far into the review, you likely already think that I look a little too closely into each episode to find things to nitpick. And you're right. But if you think that's bad, you'll probably be incensed by
Nitpick Corner.
why are you saluting the TARDIS? Like, I get it. You're being respectful to the Doctor, but he just steps out in a few minutes anyway, and then you're talking to him about losing weight. You're kind of all over the place with the formalities, no?
Took out that bit about coals to Newcastle. It doesn't really work in China.
Hi, don't want to interrupt. I got those figures from Hanya.
Look, I don't know how it is in the UK, but in the US, if you burst in, interrupting final redrafts for a global televised speech to announce that you've got some final figures from Hanya, whoever the hell that is, your ass would be chewed raw, and you'd likely never be invited to another speech.
This means more to the office than you. And yet, do you hear any complaints when I do this? These pencils more important. These pens more important. These paper clips more important. You miserable little crybaby.
I appreciate you trying to extract DNA from Susan Triad here, Melanie, but this shit was risky as hell and not very stealthy. And I imagine if Unit wanted to know if she was an extraterrestrial, you could have just put the DNA joy buzzer in your hand the first time you met her, and Unit could have ruled out that she was another version of the Master trying to take over the Earth again. So I like to review episodes on their own merit. I can easily say that due to my disappointment in the next episode, it could easily tear this one apart. But I can't say that. Even knowing the ending and how easily Sutekh gets defeated, I really liked the ending cliffhanger here. As soon as the red cloud shows up over the TARDIS, I started to get invested. And by the end, when the TARDIS scan happens and the Harbinger speech, I am fully entertained. I don't love that the Doctor just stands there with his mouth open, but this is Sutekh. He had to come up with a band-aid solution last time to trap him, and now he finds out all these years later that it didn't work, so I can forgive that. I was up and cheering the first time I watched this episode because I'm a simple guy that still fanboys over stuff. I watch Doctor Who because it's fun, and I'm still a fan first. I give The Legend of Ruby Sunday a 7. There's so much that I didn't like about it for the first 3/4 of the episode, especially the fact that most of the episode people are just standing around talking, but man, the reveal is nearly friggin' perfect, and I didn't sweat the small stuff during the last 10 minutes. I was in, man. And no, I wasn't surprised by Sutekh's return because it was my top guess at the time, but I was down for it. Then the next episode happens and I thought, it's time to start a YouTube channel. Guys, we hit 50 subscribers. I promised an underwhelming reveal if we got there, and we did. So, here is my hand. It's 50 subscribers. I gotta hit 1,000 to even get monetized. We got a long way to go before you get something fantastic. Plus, think of all the milestones along the way. I'll tell you this, if we get to 100, I'll think about releasing the one video on my channel that is currently private that I made after finishing the review of Star Beast that only 5 people have seen. How's that for a tease? Let's do a quick shout out to my Blue Sky follower of the week, Be Weird Art. She's cool, makes great art, and has great taste because she thinks my reviews are funny. Hell, she's such a good fan she showed my reviews to her mom. And she has a Seal of Rassilon tattoo. You should go follow her because she's way more a committed fan than I am. So next week we'll finally wrap up the season. Obviously a new season is coming in April, but hopefully in the interim, if I'm able to get the time, I plan to tackle some classic Who episodes. If not, then we'll have to wait till the next season is over, and then I'll go back and start working on some classic episodes. I'll review them the same way that I'm reviewing these. And I can't wait to actually get in and really dig around. It's been a minute since I've seen a lot of these. I've already got my first one on tap. So do me a favor and subscribe and get ready for a lot more Doctor Who nonsense. And as always, may the ham ever be in your favor, but, you know, salty.
In time, you will know what it's like to lose. To feel so desperately that you're right, yet to fail all the same. Dread it. Run from it. Destiny still arrives.